What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. I am Kyle Nabors along with Sean Hammond. It is Monday morning, October 16th. We are here to talk about another Bears loss. Sean, another, not a great feeling around Chicagoland here this Monday morning, man.
No, it look, losing sucks, but it especially sucks when you lose your quarterback. And you hope that it's not a long-term thing. The reports last night were that Justin Fields is dealing with a dislocated thumb that they popped back in, but they still want to take a look on an MRI this morning. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what we get in terms of any information this afternoon. I pessimistic me thinks they're not going to tell us anything till probably Wednesday, but it's just a bummer of a situation. That was a winnable game too, and the Bears could have won that game, especially if Justin Fields was still playing.
I'm trying to figure out where to go from there, just because that wasn't all on the quarterback yesterday. You know, it's I guess the place I want to start here, even before we get too deep into what happened with Justin, is what happened to the prior 2 weeks. They came out yesterday and the offense looked much more like the first 3 weeks in the previous 2 weeks again. And it didn't take long for me yesterday to start wondering how was this the game plan after having this much time off, right? Why are you not building on the success of the last 2 weeks? And we saw Minnesota yesterday immediately do its best to start taking away DJ Moore. And it's the second that happened, it was panic mode all over again.
There was no second option. There was no backup plan. Yeah, I mean, look, the offense came out flat. They couldn't move the chains, and you weren't throwing the ball to DJ Moore, and you lose
first
Davis.
Play of the game. First play of the game, you take a sack.
Yeah, and even when they did get down into the red zone, that whole sequence went really poorly. I kind of thought Darnell Wright tweaked his knee a little bit or something. There was a first down at I don't know where they were, inside the 10. And then the next two plays, he got beat really badly. And he played the whole game. I don't think it was any major kind of thing. But to me, it looked like whatever happened on first down was still kind of affecting him.
Yeah, I know that sequence you're talking about. The Bears offensive line, it's funny. We talked about on Friday. I think part of the reason there was optimism going into this weekend was the fact that the Bears offensive line was as healthy as it had been all season long. It did not perform well at all yesterday, though.
No, and it all starts. I mean, it started from the very first drive, but
right.
It didn't help when Nate Davis left with an ankle injury. We saw him in a boot after the game. No surprise there. It seemed pretty serious. He was, barely able to walk off the field with some help.
Yeah.
And so that's
he immediately crumpled to the ground, and that was the play where I think Larry Borum got beat off the left edge, if I can recall correctly. Justin Fields got rolled up or got taken down and then fell right onto Nate Davis's leg as he fell backwards.
That was one of those classic plays that you always fear for your offensive lineman, where you get rolled up on from behind. He had no chance, couldn't see it coming, and it just sucks. Hopefully it's not a major thing, but I imagine he's just based on how bad it looked yesterday. I gotta imagine IR is something that they're thinking right now, but we'll have to see what exactly how bad that is.
Man, for a team that was finally starting to get healthy, yesterday just did not go well for the Bears.
No, but, and then not to jump to the second half, but I mean, then you got the thing going while we're talking about the O-line. They swap out the center. They put Lucas Patrick back in there and basically bench Cody Whitehair. And
what are you talking about? That they didn't bench Cody Whitehair.
The Matt Eberflus. Come on, man. He had an easy out. He could have said Tyson was more comfortable with Lucas. That was his easy out. And I mean, if he was trying to say it, he didn't say it very well.
Well, he started twisting himself in knots instead of just saying what the easy out was there. Like, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Cody was having some noticeable issues snapping the football, especially in those shotgun situations. Everybody saw it. You guys saw it watching on TV. We saw it at the game. And then you swap out the center. I mean, I don't know. And now, if Nate Davis is going to be out for a while, you wonder if are they going to look at Cody Whitehair potentially moving back to guard? Everything's kind of on the table here as you sort of sort through what they can do on that offensive line.
Everyone joining us live this morning, we really do appreciate it. If you are watching live on YouTube, jump into the chat, give us a question or comment. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, send a link to a friend if you can. It helps everyone find the show. We really do appreciate it. You can follow Sean on Twitter at Sean_Hammond. You can follow myself on Twitter at Kyle Nabors. You can find us at Bears_Insider. Mike B. Husky says, you had the better team. You were at home. The opponent was missing their best player, and it clearly showed, and yet you had no way of taking advantage of any of it. Again, an indictment of coaching. Sean, what do you think?
Well, yeah, look, the defense played a really nice game. You take away the scoop and score, Tyson Bagent's fumble that wound up with 7 points the other direction. And the defense played a really nice game. You had a turnover. You almost had 2 turnovers and maybe should have had 2 turnovers. That play with TJ Edwards was really close there along the sideline. And you got a key fourth quarter stop, a 3-and-out with 7 minutes to go. You gave your offense a chance. And, that's a lot to ask an undrafted rookie, Tyson Bagent, to come in there and lead a potentially game-winning drive in his first appearance in an NFL football game. But you like what you saw from the defense overall. The secondary was closer to healthy. It's unfortunate that Eddie Jackson had to go out again. But, yeah, I mean, the Vikings didn't exactly look like they had an offensive identity yesterday either, and you couldn't beat them.
No, you couldn't. And, frankly, the final score was 19-13, and I know that the Bears were able to get down into the Vikings part of the field there at the end of the game, but I never felt like the Bears were really in that game. Allen says the defense finally held a team under 20 points, and they still lost, shaking my head. One thing, I mean, here, what happened with the running game yesterday? Because it felt like it was really successful whenever they went to it, and there just was, again, we talked about this through the first 3 weeks of the season. There seems to be no rhyme or reason sometimes with the way that they're using, or the way that game planning isn't the right word. There's no flow to the play calling sometimes, and particularly with the run game.
Look, D'Onta Foreman had his best stretch in that fourth quarter when maybe you're a little more hesitant to have your backup quarterback throwing the football, but he was ripping off some nice runs. And I was watching that wondering, where's this been all game? Because they seemed like it was coming naturally and fairly easily. And he's a tough runner, man. He's like, does not go down easy. He's breaking tackles out there. He's trying to push through guys, and you're picking up good chunk gains with him in that fourth quarter. And yeah, like I wondered that as well. Where has that been all game prior to that?
So Sean, we were in the locker room yesterday, and there's a little scrum around D'Onta Foreman. So I thought I'll just stick my arm in there and see what he has to say. And I mean, and to your point, he's like, I felt like there was a couple runs that if I just break some tackles, it's a different outcome. So it was a very veteran, like kind of taking responsibility. Here's what I'm going to do to get better. But I agree with you. There was a couple stretches there that he could have proved pretty pivotal. So.
Yeah. And, like it just, to your point too, Kyle, like it just felt like there was no flow with whether it's the play calling, whether it's just not picking up first downs and getting into that rhythm. That first half, even before Justin got hurt, just something just felt off the whole time.
Yeah, and everyone, Jake Barlson joining us here, producing the show live with Sean yesterday at Soldier Field. Jake, you are right. Like both of you guys. It's well, Sean. When we looked at the offense yesterday, right? Like you had a couple design run with Fields early in that game, but like what happened to the play action? What happened to getting him on the perimeter that we had seen the prior 2 weeks?
Yeah, it seemed like that element disappeared a little bit, and I don't know why that would be. I mean, you came into that game with nearly a completely healthy offensive line, other than your left tackle, who's Larry Borum's been in there a few games now. It's not like this is his first rodeo, and I don't know where that element went, and I don't. I think what Luke Getsy would say is it just comes down to the matchup, and for whatever reason, maybe they saw something in the Vikings that didn't allow them to do that, or that something else that they wanted to expose, but it wasn't working, whatever they were trying to do.
Rick Gonzalez, Jake, I'm gonna throw this up here from Rick. Says Foreman was the best running back, but yet they started Evans, talking about Darrington Evans. Poor coaching, and more poor coaching. I was surprised with the amount Darrington Evans was on the field yesterday. Darrington Evans was with the Bears last year. They just brought him back off the Miami Dolphins practice squad with the injuries to Roshan Johnson and Khalil Herbert. I expected Evans to be involved. He essentially had to be yesterday with the other injuries, but yeah, he was on the field a larger. I haven't seen a snap count for him yet, or I haven't looked at snap counts yet, but he was out there a lot.
Yeah, he was, and I don't personally care who technically starts the game or whatever. I don't think the coaches care about that either, but I think the volume of snaps was a little bit surprising to me as well. Just seeing how, not even snaps, but the volume of touches. I mean, I kind of thought this was going to be Foreman's game, and it kind of was. You look at the final numbers; he was clearly the lead back, but I thought they could have gone to him a lot more early on in that game, and for whatever reason, that wasn't the approach they chose to take.
Yeah, CJ says running downhill worked until Getsy stopped it. And I went into that game. I had texted some friends on Saturday who were actually asking me about some fantasy football stuff, about like running backs to plug in, right? I can't remember who the other, I think it was Chuba Hubbard down in Carolina, or Donta Foreman, essentially. And like my response to them was like this is a matchup for the Bears where I really felt like they could pound the ball with Donta Foreman against the Minnesota Vikings defense that frankly is not good. It's a bad defense. You can expose them in the run game and then beat them with play action. I expected that to be the game plan going into it. It just wasn't. I don't know what Luke Getsy and they were trying to again, how I just don't understand how you come out of that Washington Commanders game, have 9 days to review your first 5 weeks of tape, and that's what you come back with yesterday.
Sorry, Kyle. Somebody's got a leaf blower right outside my window. I don't know if you can hear that.
It's yard work always occurs when someone is
it's inevitable every time. Yeah. I swear, it's like 9:30 on Monday. Oh, let's break out the leaf blower. But I got the snap counts up here. It was basically like a 60-40 in favor of Foreman. Not quite. Evans was like 36% of snaps, and then Kari Blasingame was probably actually. You know what? Velus Jones was back there a couple times. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I wondered. You just, I don't know. We've had so many questions about Luke Getsy as the play caller, and it's like, it seems like it's always a different thing. It's whether it's how they're using Justin, whether it's are they running enough or not, how they're when they're using the run game versus not. It's just there's always another question. It feels like
I'm not entirely certain it's on Luke Getsy either. Like I almost think it's on the coaching staff in general. Like I just feel like it's like a conservative game plan. You know what I mean? Like it's the Matt Eberflus game plan here. I don't know. I really don't at this point.
I mean, I've been saying all along. I feel like at heart, Flus is a conservative coach, and
Yeah,
that's why some of those things, like when he went for that 4th and 1 against Denver, and situations like that, I found to be very surprising because that was the most aggressive we've ever seen him, and I feel like, in my opinion, a lot of these conservative decisions in the past and maybe on Sunday have got to be coming from the top. I think that's just the mindset of the head coach.
that's what I think too. Like it just doesn't. Something doesn't make sense here. Like there's a disconnect at some point in this chain of command, or between play. Like something doesn't look right. Like we saw it the first 3 weeks of the season. We thought they got it corrected, and they went back to it here in week 6. Like I think anyone in the chat knows. Anyone who's watched football on a consistent basis, like you can see this Bears offense, and there's just not flow. There's not rhythm. I don't know what that was again yesterday.
And so now, obviously, we don't know who's going to be playing quarterback next week. But that clearly will throw a wrench into, if Justin can't play, all this positive momentum and that you've built over the last couple of weeks offensively kind of goes out the window. And you wonder, I imagine you're going to have a game plan that's a little bit dumbed down, for lack of a better term, for your backup quarterback, even though Tyson Bagent, has shown some promising stuff. I think he looked really good in the preseason. I think there were parts of that game where he looked all right. But at the end of the day, he's your backup quarterback, and he hasn't played a whole lot of NFL football.
Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast is sponsored by Ken Nelson Auto Group, proudly serving the Sauk Valley area for over 55 years. Ken Nelson Auto Group offers 10 new vehicles franchised in one convenient location right here in Dixon, Illinois. Shop a great selection of new and pre-owned vehicles at kennelsonauto.com. Before we get into the Tyson Bagent stuff, Sean, Jake, can you throw that comment you had up there from Rick back up there a little bit about Flus being 0-8? Yeah. So Rick says Flus is 0-8 versus the North and 4-19 overall record, and to make it worse, his press conferences are worse than his coaching. Outside of the press conferences, you go back to Ryan Poles. We're gonna take the North and never give it back, right? Your head coach is 0-8 against the NFC North. That is brutal.
That's not taking anything. Yeah, that is brutal. And I don't know the history. I don't know the numbers on this, but how many NFL coaches who started out 4-19 amounted to anything? Obviously that would take a lot of research to figure out, but I imagine it's a small number.
I was wondering yesterday and this morning, before they got the win against the Washington Commanders, there were the cries for Matt Eberflus's job were pretty loud, and that win, brought that fire down a bit. I was wondering yesterday if that was really going to ratchet right back up, and I don't feel like it has, quite yet. I'm wondering if it's still just the Washington win and the way the offense looked for a couple games gave him a bit of a reprieve. I don't know if maybe because of the Justin Fields injury and that kind of dominating the headlines. But as Rick pointed out in those statistics, you're now 1-5, and you're back to a point now where you're going, where are you finding wins on this schedule, particularly if Justin Fields is out for an extended period of time?
Yeah, and look, I mean, if Justin's out, that's kind of a baked in excuse right there. Especially if he's out for several weeks, then it becomes that situation where it's like, well, we didn't have our starting quarterback, who we were building some positive momentum, and then we lost our quarterback, and who knows what would have happened if he stayed healthy.
I will say this: the players did seem to rally in the second half yesterday around, they didn't just mail it in, which I'll be honest, I kind of was concerned, oh no, Justin Fields is going to be out for a month and they're just going to mail this in. Like this is going to get ugly. And the coaching staff, though, is going to have that built-in excuse. And like, it's just going to be a slog until Justin Fields gets back. They didn't give up yesterday, but let's go over to Tyson Bagent because I mean, he looked like a rookie yesterday. There wasn't a lot there to make me feel like, all right, like, there were some good vibes here in the preseason. He got rid of the ball quick, but that doesn't mean he was reading the field. That probably was more by design than anything.
Yeah, look, he got the ball out quick for sure. And yes, he had a very nice preseason. He looked good in a couple preseason games. He didn't play against or with any starters in any of those preseason games. So like,
right,
that is all with a huge grain of salt. That is all like, the preliminary steps for an undrafted player. This is a different animal. If you're talking about potentially starting on Sunday next week against the Raiders, like this is a whole nother thing. And, I think from having watched him in training camp and in the preseason, I think he has the tools to be a really good backup quarterback in the NFL. Beyond that, it's just too early to say. I don't know that, I could stake anything on what Tyson Bagent is going to be, but I think there's a place for him in the NFL. And just because he's come, especially if he has a week to prepare, and you throw in the fact that the Raiders might also have a backup quarterback this week.
Jimmy G at the hospital yesterday.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would like the Bears in that matchup. I feel like Tyson Bagent is going to give you a chance to keep games close. And I thought I was impressed with the way that he sort of came back from that fumble and led a really nice touchdown drive, a long drive, 77 yards. I mean, that's impressive for a guy who's never played in an NFL game.
He does seem to have a bit of moxie to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
His confidence is through the roof, and you love that.
Yeah, that's certainly a positive. The downside is, and maybe you can hit on this a little bit more from what you saw during training camp and you've seen, throughout this, like that arm strength, though, looks like it's going to be a concern. Obviously, on that interception yesterday, he threw a lot of ducks. I'm worried about his arm strength. Rick Gonzalez says, the interception is one thing. The one that actually really stands out to me that is a concern is the play where Tyler Scott came back and caught that ball. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I would say there's a 95% chance he was trying to throw that ball out of bounds and he just didn't get it to the sideline.
Yeah, I wonder that as well too. That got, it was a bit overlooked when we were talking to him yesterday, but maybe that's a play we could ask him about if he talks this week. I wonder if he was throwing that to the sideline. If watching it live, I actually I don't know what the TV view was on that play. If you probably couldn't see Tyler Scott in the frame when he threw that ball, but watching it live, I did think he was throwing it to Tyler Scott.
Okay. So yeah, from the TV version, I thought for sure he was trying to. And then when Tyler Scott slid in and they cut back to Bagent and he kind of was shaking his head and smiling like.
Okay, I didn't see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty confident he was just trying to get that ball to the sideline.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick. Thank you. So I'm concerned with his arm strength seeing those two different plays. Now, let's give him a week of practice with the first team. Of course, we don't know that. Yeah, let's see what happens with Justin Fields. Even if Justin Fields avoids IR, I just can't imagine with a dislocated thumb he's going to be able to go on Sunday. Jake, what do you got for us?
Well, I was just going to say, I think a lot of it depends, even if he doesn't miss a whole lot of time, what's the pain tolerance? I mean, how viable throwing the football 20 yards down the field are you going to be? So even if Fields does play, I think you're looking at short field throws, play action.
That's a really good point. If Fields does come back this week. So the reporting is it's a dislocated thumb and they popped it in and he couldn't grip the football. And so I'm not a doctor. I don't know how long that takes to get back. Obviously they still want to look at it on an MRI. So there's at least some concern that it might take some time to be good to go. But yeah, Go ahead, Kyle.
I would say that, one thing I immediately think of is if Justin Fields was going to play, you're probably going to need to play more out of shotgun because you're not going to want him taking snaps directly. But that's an issue because you can't snap the ball out of shotgun apparently very well.
Yeah, I that's a good point. That's a good.
Yeah.
These are all good points. I mean, yeah, if he can't grip the football very well, and if his thumb is ailing him in some way, you probably don't want him running with the ball in his hand. Like you don't want guys punching at his thumb or in that area. You probably are trying to get the ball out quick and keep it short. And we just got to see. I guess it's kind of like a wait and see just how bad this thing is for him.
Yeah, we don't know, but if I had to look in a crystal ball and just take a total stab at this, is it crazy to say that Tyson Bagent might give you a better chance to win if he's not 100% with that? I'd say it might be.
I don't think it's crazy to say. I think it depends. Like I was saying, it depends how much if you want Justin running. If you don't want him running, I don't know why you wouldn't just use Bagent. Like if you don't want him running and he can't throw the ball downfield or whatever, then yeah, use your backup. But we've seen different teams approach is different. I imagine the Bears would probably be kind of cautious with Fields. That's just my hunch on all this. But I mean, you've seen what the Bengals have done with Joe Burrow all season, and maybe they would feel like an 80% Justin Fields is better than a backup.
Are you going to be really conservative if your job's on the line? And that's one thing we kind of got to feel or wonder here, right? Like how conservative do the coaching staff and even the front office want to be when you're 1-5, you're 4-19 as your head coach? Like you can't afford to finish 2-15, 3-14 again. Who gives you the best chance to win?
Yeah, and look, that's how this coaching staff has always approached it. It is like a week by week thing, and I think that's going to have to be how they look at it. Especially if it's if Justin is kind of just a week by week situation. It wouldn't surprise me if they just rest him a week or two and are able to get him back. But again, I don't know anything about a dislocated thumb. I have no idea how long that will set a guy back.
Yeah, Kyle, I think you brought up a really interesting point of you have a coaching staff that's going to be fighting for their professional lives here. And you have a front office that's trying to give as much time as possible to evaluate whether or not Justin is your quarterback moving forward with everything looming on the horizon in the spring. I think it's a fascinating dilemma.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just a small little wrinkle to it too, is like you start looking now, you're 1-5, you're wondering about the future of the team. And you're right now, I mean, you're tracking to have the top 2 picks in the draft. Although at Carolina, did Carolina win yesterday? Yeah, did they end up? No, Miami. Carolina was up 14-0, and I was wondering what the hell was going on, and then Miami went ahead and put things back in order.
Although a lot of weird things happened yesterday, but that Carolina wasn't one of them.
Yeah, no, they got up 14-0 quickly in that game, and I was wondering if that was going to happen or not. But yeah, Miami put things back in order. You're tracking to the top 2 picks. It's a fun little thing. I don't know if you guys watched, anyone in the chat watched Notre Dame USC on Saturday night, but Caleb Williams, the assumed number 1 pick that people are wanting to tank for, looked absolutely miserable against Notre Dame. I don't know if you saw that, Sean.
I didn't get to watch much college football on Saturday other than my Illini.
I did. Yeah, I watched that all the way through.
Yeah, did not look good. Now it's one game, of course, but
yeah, I thought Twitter was actually kind of funny. There was some people joking like you're getting a look of what Caleb Williams could look like in Chicago a year from now. I mean, it was just very pedestrian. Three interceptions, not a lot of places to go with the football. It was kind of funny.
I've been getting a lot of questions about him, and I need to watch more film on him to really have some ideas. But I imagine, was he under a lot more pressure than he had been in previous games?
I would say so. I mean, I don't watch a whole ton of USC, but just watching that one game, yeah.
Yeah. And this bring up our good friend, old colleague, Hub Arkish. Hub always liked to point out, like, how few first-round quarterbacks actually pan out and become a franchise QB. It's the same thing with Caleb Williams. Like, I love him as a prospect. I don't think he's a sure thing. I don't,
Very few guys are. I think like the Trevor Lawrences of the world are far and away the exception, not the rule. And yeah, the grass is always greener on the
and
other side.
Trevor Lawrence, while has shown some upside, Trevor Lawrence is, I think, far from being a franchise quarterback at this point of his career.
I mean, look, he's still got stuff to prove. I think he's easily the best one of that draft class. We look at, the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, all those guys. But
Jones.
yeah, I mean, you're right.
Mac Jones about to lose his job.
Mac Jones is going to lose his job. Trey Lance is, filling up water bottles for Dak Prescott. And but yeah, you're right. I mean, Trevor Lawrence does have more to prove. But yeah, like the grass is always greener on the other side. I'm you got a veteran quarterback. I don't know if the Bears should keep Justin Fields long term. I don't know the answer to that, but there's always going to be another guy to get excited about in the draft. And, I think you got to just let the season play out, whether that's with Justin, whether you're watching the prospects at the college level.
Sports Chicago Style says, are the Bears ruining Justin Fields, or is Justin Fields not the guy? It's $1 million question now, isn't it? I mean, that's what now at 1-5. I think we know that this coaching staff is gone at the end of the year. Like, I guess I shouldn't say we.
I don't think we know that.
I should rephrase that. Yeah, I should rephrase that. I can say personally, I feel pretty strongly if this is where I think it's going, which is probably a 13 or 14 loss team at this point. Like, this is like, I feel pretty strongly that they're going to have to make a change at quarterback. To me, the bigger question is Justin Fields. And like all the excitement of those last two games, there were times yesterday holding the ball way too long again. Like, not all of that was on Luke Getsy. I don't know, Sean. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, look, he had his two best games against two of the worst defenses in the league. I mean,
is the only thing you have to do is take DJ Moore away, and Justin Fields is going to hold the ball for too long?
I mean, maybe. Yeah. I mean, he didn't throw it to a single other wide receiver in that Commanders game, not a completion anyway. And yeah, that's like we haven't even touched on that really, but there was no opportunity to get DJ Moore the ball. I think he had 2 targets in that first half. And, we talk about it all the time. Like, you got to force feed your top guys. And I know that the Vikings were doing things to try to take him away. But when DJ Moore touches the ball, good things happen. I want to go back, Kyle. I'm curious on how many touchdown drives they've had when DJ Moore hasn't touched the ball, because I imagine that it's a pretty low number.
Yeah, probably. I'm now looking it up. I'm trying to figure out here. Like, I want to go back to that first half in particular, and like, how many carries did Donta Foreman have in the first half?
I have the first half stats up here. Hold on one sec.
Yeah, if you can. He only finished with 15.
He had 5 carries for 18 yards in the first half.
Like, that's unacceptable.
And no catches. Yeah, no catches.
That honestly doesn't surprise me too much. He's not a great pass catching back, but
yeah, and I mean, Darrington Evans also had 5 carries. So those guys were pretty much even in that first half.
It's a bad game plan. It's just a bad game plan against a Vikings front that is not good.
Look, I know Darrington Evans was here last year and he knows the scheme and the playbook already, but the guy's been here a week. That's still really surprising to me that they were using them kind of 50-50 in that first half.
I don't even, this is because this isn't, Monday morning quarterbacking. Like, I'm shocked that the game plan wasn't power run play action. Like, that you had Donta Foreman coming in. Like, that's what he's good at. That's what the Vikings have been bad against this year. Run that power run game, get Justin Fields to the edge, don't allow the Vikings to pin their ears back and get after Fields. It wasn't a great game plan, and then he held the ball for too long. It was a combination of things, I guess.
Yeah, it certainly was. And the question was just up there a minute ago. What happened to that connection with Darnell Mooney? And yeah, from Sports Chicago Style. I don't know, man. It's Mooney was kind of that security blanket, in the past, and the one guy you felt like Justin could rely on. And yeah, when DJ Moore is bottled up, Mooney had one really nice big gain, and that was great, but the volume's just not there between those two guys right now.
Mike B with a excellent comment here. This is Oh, sorry, Jake. How do you negate a blitz when you can't block it? Just run right at them. Exactly. You knew Minnesota was going to bring pressure yesterday. That's what they do. Run the ball at them.
Yeah, and I talked to Darnell right after the game, and we were asking him about picking up the blitz, and I got the sense that he wasn't too thrilled with how they did in that first half, in terms of just the communication and combating those blitzes from Minnesota, and when you got a defense that's coming at you like that. Yeah, I think that's a big reason why there was no flow. Like they weren't able to pick up all those blitzes, and then you're punting the ball, or you're not moving the chains, and you just get stuck.
We got to wrap this up here in a few minutes, guys. But before we do, one thing I'm wondering about in terms of some of the screen game that wasn't there yesterday. Equanimeous St. Brown was out, and I do wonder. It's funny because how long we were screaming about how Equanimeous, if you're going to run, this type of stuff, why isn't Equanimeous St. Brown on the field blocking? They finally got him in the last couple of weeks, and then he misses yesterday. I wonder if his absence impacted at all, because when we have seen Tyler Scott, and I'm interested to see Tyler Scott's snap share yesterday. Tyler Scott,
get that for you.
Tyler Scott has struggled at perimeter blocking so far in his young NFL career, and I do wonder if that impacted the game plan. Now that I think about it,
Tyler Scott was 59%, so he was wide receiver 3, wide receiver. And they basically use those 3 guys the whole game. Velus Jones played 11%.
Velus Jones having a decent game yesterday.
I thought he did too. And I wrote about it in my 5 takeaways. I thought he did a really nice job as a kick returner. That was the first time all year that they let anybody take a kick out, and I thought that was good. I mean, look, you got this really dangerous guy. He was one of the top kick returners in the league last year. Use him, and he averaged 30 yards per return. Obviously, there was that one that was, he kind of got the refs changed the call or whatever, called it a touchback. But he told me that he knew that rule, and he knew that was going to be a touchback. He just took it out anyway.
CJ says, can we move Velus to running back? I know he struggles with catching the ball. Can he read a hole? The Bears got him involved out of the backfield at least once yesterday, maybe a couple times. Got to look that up now.
Yeah.
You got two carries.
I know there was
yards.
At least once where he was lined up. It was a single back formation, under center, and he was the back. And so I don't know if we've seen that in a game. Have we seen that? Did we see that early last year? I don't even remember.
Not that I recall. Rick, I don't think that's a terrible idea. I do think he's another one, right? Like, okay, you're 1-5. Let's find out what Velus Jones is. Like, does he have a roster spot next year or not? Probably not, but get the ball in his hands and let the kid see what he can do. Might as well, right?
I'd love to see him. There were a couple times last year where like they had a deep shot opportunity with him, and for whatever reason it didn't, he dropped it or the throw was off the mark. Like, I feel like we haven't seen him just run, just use that speed and throw him a deep ball once in a while.
He kind of strikes me as like a Cordell or Patterson. Like, if you really wanted to use him that way, I think that's probably their best shot. I don't know if he's as talented or as good.
I do get kind of what you're saying, Jake. I do think Cordero Patterson is like one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen. Like he is like
Yeah, he's
a
big.
massive, massive man. And not that Velus Jones isn't big, he is for his size, but he's not nearly as tall as CP. And the question, which the commenter, whoever asked that, brought up is, can he read the blocks? You kind of have to know what everybody's doing in front of you if you're going to be back there as the running back.
All right, guys. Anything we haven't hit on, Sean?
No, I thought there was something else I was going to bring up, but at the moment it's escaping me.
Jake, how about you? Anything else? I think we've kind of knocked out most of the ridiculous from this game.
Yeah, not from the game. Obviously we're just waiting on what happens with Justin and any potential adjustments they make from that.
Rick says the refs. I didn't think the refs were that. I mean, the refs are bad in every NFL game.
I didn't think they were bad.
The only one would have been that potential fumble with TJ Edwards.
Just the replay. I mean, that was really the only thing that I thought was a questionable decision.
Yeah. Which it certainly was questionable, but they get replay decisions wrong all the time, I feel like, in the NFL. Yeah. Like, it's just
did you think he was in bounds? What did you guys think on that play?
I mean, I was sitting right next to you live. Absolutely. I thought he was in bounds.
I thought he was in bounds. I certainly thought it was too close to overturn the call on the field as it was made.
Yeah.
Mike says, I thought the refs had a terrible game, but it was pretty equal on both sides. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about most NFL. That's kind of what I expect out of Justin took 2 shots to the head. Yeah. Again, like, there are those type of calls in every NFL game. It's what my immediate reaction to the TJ Edwards thing was actually like, well, that's just kind of like the universe evening itself out for the DJ Moore touchdown catch that I'm pretty confident wasn't a touchdown catch.
Where
he hit the pylon. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. I mean, I know we're going back to a previous game now, but like the pylon's not in. Like, you gotta get your foot down still, right? Am I wrong in that rule?
That's the only. I'm like, can you hit the pylon? Like, I'm like, I think.
I guess I gotta look that up, but I thought he still had to touch the ground, but I don't know. That's going back a ways.
Oh yeah, Mike B here. I'm gonna throw. Look at the grounding call they gave Kirk. I've never seen that one. He threw it right over the fullback. I did. I laughed out loud at that when they threw the flag for intentional grounding on that. That was brutal. I mean, like, I don't know if it was a design screen or if they just had the outlet there on the dump pass for if the defender did get upfield, but he was clearly trying to dump that off.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate one for Kirk.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's get out of here. Thank you, everyone who joined us live this morning. Make sure you go to shawlocal.com for all of our Bears content. Make sure you follow all of us on Twitter. You can find Sean on Twitter at Sean_Hammond. You can find Jake on Twitter at Jake Bartleson. You can find myself on Twitter at Kyle Nabors. And of course, you can find Bears_Insider on Twitter as well. Everyone, thank you who joined us live this morning. We'll be back with you guys later this week to talk Bears Raiders. For now, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Everyone have a good week. Later, guys.